Welcome to Influence, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of influencer marketing and the creator economy with the people who know it best, the agents, creators, and marketers who operate behind the scenes. This podcast is hosted by Powder, where streamers can search their best moments to find short, shareable clips with AI. And I'm your host, Alyssa Goldberg. Today, we're excited to have Matt Potthoff on the show. He's a former professional esports player who has been in the business for over 14 years and has accomplished the rare feat of winning a championship as a player, as a coach, and as a general manager. He's now at Pivot Agency, and his deep involvement in the esports community, from the front lines of competitive play to strategic management and business development, provides him with really unique insights on the evolving dynamics of esports and influencer marketing. Hey, Matt. Welcome.
Hi, Alyssa. Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here and contribute and talk about esports and influencer marketing.
Very cool. Well, to kick things off, can you walk us through what it was like being a professional esports player?
I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, had a natural talent for Halo and Call of Duty. I started to gravitate towards these local tournaments in the Midwest and started to compete with my friends and build pickup teams and try to make some side cash to avoid a fast food job when you're a teenager, because my parents were always pressuring me to try to pay my bills or make money somehow. So I ended up being fairly successful, winning $90 to $100 at these smaller tournaments, and
Nice.
realized that I had talent to hopefully, take this to the next level. I think in 2010, 2011, esports was still kind of figuring itself out. And, I decided to go to school. Before going pro, I got my degree at Full Sail University, and then really just set my sights on becoming a professional Call of Duty player. I ended up going pro, placing fifth at one of my first tournaments on the circuit, and that led to me signing my first contract, and went on to play with 16 different teams, including Cloud9, Team Liquid, and a lot of other organizations.
To what extent were you streaming and creating content while you were a professional player?
When I was on Curse, which is before Team Liquid, they acquired Curse. They were a very prominent organization in League of Legends, Call of Duty, and a lot of other games. They actually we were contractually obligated to stream, so that's when I was first introduced, where I just wanted to focus on playing. All I cared about was trying to win championships, and our organization forced us to, which is completely fine. It was a part of our contract and how they paid our salaries through the streaming deal.
Yep.
So it was through Azubu. Azubu no longer exists, but we were obligated to stream 40 hours a month. And
Mm.
funny story, some of my teammates would literally just have bots playing against each other in Call of Duty, and they would click stream and just let these AI bots and Call of Duty shoot each other, and that was their way of getting their hours completed, which I always think is hilarious to share. I actually streamed everything. I would stream my scrims, and then I would play Hearthstone or strategy games and just try to engage with my audience after streaming, just to have
Yeah.
less pressure of having to perform and trying to build a community on the side when I was a pro player.
Right, because I guess if it's not your core game, and because when it is, you feel obligated to perform your best. You also feel that like internal motivation because you know what good play looks like.
Yep.
But for a game that's just more recreational for you, I mean, even if you're very good at it, it doesn't carry the same kind of weight.
Yeah, there's this notion with pro players and, top amateur players where they don't want to stream their scrimmages and their practice and their
Mm.
strategy because they don't want to give away valuable insights on strategy or how they conquer problems. That's really what separates some of the best teams from
Mm.
the worst, is that inside trade on how they communicate with one another and how they tackle film and how they adapt to situations mid
Oh
game. So
wow.
there's always been this stigma, specifically in Call of Duty, with streaming while you're scrimming, and Scump and all of these prolific Call of Duty creators. They're just so naturally talented, and they were streaming at the same time. So all the entire community kind of went on this dilemma. Well, if Scump and Nade Shot and all these guys are
Mm.
streaming their scrims and they're winning championships, then there's really nothing that we need to hide. Like all these COD players, including myself, started to realize that we need to focus on building a brand instead of just focusing on the game itself, because your career can only last for so long sometimes, and you need to be able to take that and do something else.
And how did that understanding that contribute to your decision to evolve into a coaching and eventually a managerial role?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for me, I have somewhat of a dry, monotone voice, so I'm not I'm
Says
not the
who?
um, I enjoy making content, I enjoy streaming, but my true passion was winning championships and bettering the people around me. That's where my,
Yeah.
true passions lie. So after I was done competing, my thumb stopped working or whatever the story is, I was given an opportunity to coach the organization I previously competed for, which was eUnited.
Mm.
My second event coaching, I made some roster changes, and that led to us winning the Major League Gaming Championship in Atlanta. We beat Optic Gaming 3-2, and I basically was with a team of amateur players that had never set foot on main stage before, and they went on to beat one of the most storied teams in Call of Duty. So my coaching career and the organization I was associated with skyrocketed after that win,
Mm.
and it really cemented us as a premier Call of Duty team, because no one has seen an amateur organization just roll through winners bracket and then beat Optic Gaming in a grand finals reset. So
Yeah.
that single event really helped me cement my trajectory, realizing that coaching and being on the
Mm.
managerial side was something that I wanted to do for a long time.
What do you usually recommend to players who are looking to make a lasting career out of esports?
Yeah, it's a great question. Looking at my career quickly, I suffered from burnout. I didn't take the proper time to look
Mm.
after my health or have a proper schedule. I was literally putting all my eggs in one basket.
Mm.
So if I
How
could
did you
go
know you were
back,
burning out?
I suffered from severe anxiety.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder,
Mm.
and I think that was just tallied up with this need to perform. I
Mm.
was dealing with roster changes all the time. I was making good money as a pro player, and I was traveling the world, but I wasn't meeting my expectations in my mid 20s to kind of prioritize having my own apartment or this and that. So
Right.
it's like this weird dilemma where you're traveling the world, your food, your hotel, your airfare, your experiences are free, but you're really only making a lot of money if you're performing really well and winning,
Mm.
or if you are getting sponsorships and all this fun stuff. I was like right at the like cusp of hitting that next tier. Like I got to say I did
Mm.
everything. I placed top four at numerous majors. I placed fifth at the Call of Duty World Championship in Advanced Warfare, which was one of the highlights of my career. Not a
Yeah.
lot of people can say that they placed, we won $70,000 in one weekend playing
Wow.
Call of Duty, which is always fun to say. But after taxes and after everything, it's like $10,000, which again is amazing for one
No, no,
weekend
no,
in
of
COD.
course, but still,
but
there's
but in the grand scheme
bills
of
to
things
pay.
over yeah, but in the grand scheme of things for a whole year, when you're like hit or miss, like I might have only made 25, 30, $40,000, which is again, it's fine, but it just wasn't enough for me to really propel myself. So for players that are looking to go pro, I definitely encourage them to one, play a game that they really enjoy playing. Like
Mm.
it's important to have that desire that you want to get on every single
Mm.
day and get better. I would constantly, if I fail to qualify for something, if I thought that I could improve, I immediately was back home instantly on my Xbox or PlayStation, and I was
Mm.
wanting to improve and get better at the game. I started to notice when those actions happened at events, and I was like, oh, I should take a day or two or three off, which was probably good for me, but my drive wasn't necessarily there. So I always
Yeah.
encourage, new players to really focus on having organization in their schedule, working out, drinking water, just eating healthy. Like I don't have to be uh, a nutritionist to tell you like what to eat. Just
No,
think of,
drink
yeah,
water.
just yes, just drink
Absolutely.
water,
Yeah.
think about your health, try to work out, try to spend time with family,
Yep.
and have like that work-life balance because we do get stuck in this notion where you just have to get better and compete and play, play, play,
Mm,
play, play, and you end up playing 8 or 9 hours a day, and you do
mm,
that for 3 years straight with barely any breaks, and it does catch up to you, unfortunately. So, I think we're
totally.
we're we're fortunately in an environment now where a lot of organizations are pushing a healthy balance, and they have mental health experts and massage therapists and more resources for players,
Mm,
and they actually advocate that they need to take breaks. When I
right.
played, it was still the wild, wild west. Like I felt like I was the manager, the mom of my team. I was negotiating contracts. I was making sure that my team was fitted for everything that they needed to do to perform. And I think that's why I translated so well to a coach and a manager. But
Mm.
it was just a lot back then. And, fortunately, we've kind of matured a bit as an industry.
So part of your job now at Pivot is to match esports players and teams with brands.
Yeah.
What criteria do you prioritize when you're looking at esports teams or trying to convey who they are, what they stand for to the brands that are looking to hire someone?
Yeah, it kind of goes both ways. So Pivot works with numerous organizations. They pay Pivot on retainer and we're their agency of record. So we help them go to market with assets that are really hard to sell. These could be like naming rights for an esports stadium or
Mm,
entitlements for a League of Legends franchise. These are seven-figure, high six-figure deals. And I tend to work my way top to bottom when I'm on calls. So when I'm speaking with a brand and if that's out of their budget or it doesn't really align with their goals, then that's really when I start to dive into influencer marketing and
yeah.
more test trial campaigns or working with a player or an influencer or maybe doing like a 3 to 6 month campaign with an organization that utilizes all of their influencers and we create like a interface strategy that's multi-layered. Those are usually my favorite campaigns where the organization is like the backbone. They're the ones activating it, and
Mm,
it's a bundled deal with teams and influencers. I feel like brands get a lot out of that, and it gives them the chance to kind of test run and see what that organization's like, how they report, how they perform, how the influencers really talk about their product in an authentic way, and then they can look at a larger partnership in detail.
mm.
But to help answer your question too, we've been kind of vetting the accounts that we want to work with as well. Like it's not
Yeah,
just us
absolutely.
going out there. We're trying to, I guess the best example is with Golden Guardians. They're owned by the Golden State Warriors, massive
Mm,
team. I had a great experience working with them, but they decided to pull out of esports in the summer and we found out on social media, many of their players found out on social media, which sucks. But
yeah.
when we're going to market and talking with brands and we're excited about the Golden State, Warriors and the Golden Guardians, for example, and then it's you have to be kind of selective and really start to vet the long-term growth of these organizations. And to be
Yeah.
honest, it's kind of hard. Content creation and influencer marketing is here to stay forever, but the pro competitive side of esports is going through a market correction and lots
Yep.
of organizations are consolidating. You're seeing, Moist and Shopify join together for a Valorant team. You're seeing
Mm,
organizations acquire other organizations,
yep.
not just Golden Guardians, but I mean, there's probably been 10 or 20 other organizations that made the business decision that esports isn't for them and they want to pull out and put their
Yep.
resources into something else, which is completely fine. That's their prerogative. So we're just going through this transition where I'm also trying to speak with organizations about their long-term strategy. How are they positioning
Mm,
themselves? Because we obviously want to invest time into orgs and influencers that are passionate about what they're doing and
yeah.
want to stay here for the long run.
And
Yeah.
in your experience, how do the needs and dynamics of esports teams differ from influencers or even influencer collectives when working with brands?
I think a lot of brands unfortunately got burned by esport organizations over the last 4 or 5 years. Not
Mm,
all of them, but there was
yeah,
just
of course.
there was enough anomalies in the space where everything has kind of changed over the last 4 or 5 years. I
Mm,
think a lot of organizations overpitched what they could actually do, and when it came to the deliverables, they were having a hard time executing it. They were
mm,
having to hire third party resources to get their deliverables done. They weren't
yeah.
reporting it efficiently like traditional sports teams do. So I think there was just a lot of this COVID boom obviously led to a lot of dollars coming into gaming and esports
Yeah.
because these brand decision makers had a budget and traditional sports and on-site events wasn't, really lucrative for them. They needed to spend this money. So yeah, we're just kind of going through a flux of making sure that when you're looking at the differences between the influencers and the individual itself, they're sometimes easier to work with. But if you are working with the right organization and you have even an agency like Pivot where we're kind of representing both sides and we're giving
Mm,
fair opinions and advice and actual strategy to these brands on, hey, like we've done work with these organizations, we know how they operate, we're
mm.
able to show them case studies on the work we've already done. I feel like that's just such a seamless way to integrate brands into the space so they know that they're coming in a proven authentic way.
What strategies do you feel like are really essential for esports organizations and players to thrive given the existing conditions? And can you talk to me a little bit more about what you were saying about like influencer marketing is here to stay? Esports is undergoing an identity crisis that's,
Yeah.
rightfully happening, but about the kind of evolution in that relationship between those two previously separate categories that are maybe now like merging a little bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to answer your question in the best way that I can. I think, focusing on the influencer side, you're seeing an abundant of pro players and organizations rely and actually diversify outside of esports. Again,
Mm,
they know it's going through a market correction. They're still excited about it, but
yep.
every brand that I'm talking to is getting into influencers for marginalized groups or focusing on music, focusing on on-site events with brands. They're
Mm,
figuring out additional ways to gravitate and be attractive to multiple communities. They're empowering women and other individuals in the space.
yep.
They're not just supporting teams anymore. Like they realize that we have to do more than just salary players and have them compete at at a high level.
Yeah, yeah.
It just that business model was, a decade ago, and we're just changing. So these organizations that are in it realize that they have to adapt. They have to talk about their strategy, and they have to have
Mm,
a diversification of new offerings. And that's hard for some organizations to come by, and it's easy for others that have been in the space and they operate with a leaner team and they're able to make those changes without any red tape. I always talk about too, and not to go too off topic, but at eUnited, at our
yeah.
peak, we had no more than 9 people, and at our weakest, we had 4 or 5, and we were able to thrive with that amount of people.
Right.
I ran our teams. I obviously wore many hats, and I was a Swiss Army knife like everyone else on our team. But we had 2 graphic designers, 2 video editors, one social media strategist, a backup social media person, myself, our CEO, and a director of marketing and sales. And probably, depending on a situation, we would insert one person in another department.
Yeah.
But my biggest worry with esports was when I saw how successful eUnited was with only 8 or 9 people, and we were in almost every title. I then
Right.
saw other organizations that had 40 or 50 people that were hired, and I personally felt that was a recipe for disaster. And
Scary.
and
Yes.
that's what we saw over the last year is we saw these
Mm.
organizations scale way too fast. My favorite line that someone posted on LinkedIn is that esports skipped puberty. Like we just went from and it makes me laugh every time. We went from Forbes announcing that all these organizations are worth, $600, 700, $1 billion. And sure, they're attractive, they are worth something, but they're just not worth that much. And we had all this investor money flood in, over promises, over delivery,
Mm,
and that's kind of the correction that we're going through right now. So I'm excited for this year. I feel like we're at the very bottom. I honestly can't see us getting worse than this unless other things happen. And I talk about that because the franchise leagues really disrupted where esports was going to go. Like, I'm a pure believer that esports is built on a open, inclusive
yep,
community where everyone can compete. That's where you have the most storylines, the most attendance, the most like unparalleled, activity that's happening from a streaming perspective. And when you close it off, and we're just not at that stage yet. Like, we need to grow more, and then I
right.
think we'll be in this. I think Valorant's doing it really well. Like, they have an open community, but they also have a partnership program where they're rewarding the teams
Mm,
that are competing at a high level. Halo as well, they have an open ecosystem, but they have 9 or 12 partner teams around the world where they're giving them an in-game skin. There's revenue opportunities. There's ways for them to host their own events. I
right.
really really like that model compared to, we're only going to have 10 or 12 teams, and we're only going to play this amount of times a year. Like, I just, our industry is just always on. Like, we're evergreen. There's something
Yep.
happening with esports all the time. Like, it's just hard to compare it to traditional, baseball and basketball and everything else that's happening in the
Right.
world
There's no
right
off
now.
season like in
Yeah.
this. I mean, it's not like, oh, when there's snow outside, we don't play this sport. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And that's why I do think influencer marketing, and I think it's encouraging for people who are listening to this and they're passionate about, content creation and streaming, that most of my conversations do lean more on influencers than
Mm,
esport organizations. And that's completely
yep.
okay. And I think that's great for them to hear. And that's, again, another reason why a lot of the accounts that I work with are offering more influencer packages, but
Mm,
it comes with some type of esports offering as well. And I think that's a great approach that a lot of organizations are taking to hit both angles.
totally. What do you think that brands often get wrong when trying to enter this space?
I think brands need to let the organizations and influencers dictate how they should talk about their product when they're
Mm,
communicating to their stream. Like, they've built this persona and they've built this brand in a unique way. I think a lot of brands want, sometimes not, I'd say like half the brands probably think like this, where it's like an ad read, or they want
right.
them to just have something that they're specifically touching on, which is great. But I think that a lot of influencers, if you took the time to ask them, how would you take my product and bring it to life with your community? I
Yep.
think you would get a really fun response where a lot of these influencers are insanely creative. They love,
Mm,
creating new spark and ideas with different ways that they can authentically, release a new product or a DLC update or whatever it is. So I think having that information and brands asking that question, they would get a lot of valuable insight. And if they took the time to refine their strategy from that feedback instead of just go, 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 I
yeah.
think it could be pretty promising. I've had a lot of influencers tell brands like, "Hey, this is what I want to do," and they decline, and then
Oh, wow.
they go ahead and do it anyway, but they don't use their product. Like, they just go ahead and use
Weird.
the
Yeah.
idea that they want, and it goes viral on social
Yeah.
media. And then they're like, "Holy crap! I should have just let you guys do what you're gonna do," if that makes sense. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's hard to recreate that virality, like, those are like, it's hard to make anything go viral on social media. There's so
There's
many
no
posts.
formula.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think giving the influencers, and not necessarily their agents, because there are some times where the interface is only through the agent themselves and not the influencer. But
Yep.
if these brands can just try to extract a little bit more information, like, we're interested in working with you, but how would you, this is what we're thinking, but is there anything else that you're thinking about that would really make this better? Or is there something else that we can do to kind of make this new release or this new product offering authentic in your stream. I think would be a great strategy for a lot of brands entering the space.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people, I mean, if the streamer is potentially like the ideal user of your product, sometimes they find things to love about it that you don't realize is an exciting selling point. Like, for example, there's this, I mean, lady example, but there's a lip gloss that's
Hmm.
really popular from Dior that like when they first went to market with it, they were selling it based on like the type of colors that they have. But then all of the influencers who were pushing it on TikTok noted that it just looks like a glaze. Like it's just the smoothest sheen that you can
Yeah.
get. Like it doesn't really matter what color it is. It's
Hmm.
actually about the texture that
Hmm.
it provides to your lips. And
Yep.
I feel like that's a great example of like the marketers thought of one angle, the influencers thought of another one. And I mean, they can both be viable options, but it's helpful when the person promoting your product finds something that they organically love about your product. And you have to also be willing to take on that feedback.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And, just to touch up on it too, like with what Powder's doing in the space and kind of focusing on influencers that don't have a robust team that, I mentioned before that I feel like at the top, these influencers that have made it in a way, they have an agent, they have a manager, they have an editing team, and they have graphic designers that are submitting thumbnails weeks in advance before
Yep.
videos goes out, so they have their schedule down to a T, and they really have their formula just knocked away. With content creators or influencers that are just starting, I really think Powder and other platforms that are out there that are allowing these influencers to kind of congregate highlights and the best clips that they have is a really great way for these individuals to save time and attempt to have some support when they're just getting started, because it's hard. It's really hard to I was talking to my boss at Pivot. He was asking me if my son wanted to become a content creator, like how easy it is, and I'm like, you should. It's how hard is it?
Yeah, it's so
It's
hard.
it's a lot of work. Like you're streaming for 8 or 9 hours a day, and then you have to go back into your stream and clip out all of your best moments and focus on short form content and long form content. You're engaging with your stream. It's like two full-time jobs. So
Yep.
it's really cool to see what you guys are doing and, helping any influencer with their, methodology when it comes to aggregating their best moments.
Thanks. Yeah, we are trying to prevent people from having that second job if they don't if
Yeah.
they don't want to.
Yeah.
I think of it like there are sprinters and there are marathon runners, and not. I mean, some people are good at both, but most people aren't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, where do you see content creation heading in the next few years, and how should players, teams, influencers prepare to adapt to these changes?
Oh gosh, I don't know how to answer this. I uh I I'm like I love AI, and I just see new things every day with it, right? Like every
Yep,
day I
me
see
too.
something new. And the most recent is being able to prompt, and keep in mind I use AI for all my projects. I use Midjourney for
Mm,
pre-concept consulting things that I'm on, but it's just wild to me how fast it's growing, and the fact that you can create a movie trailer out of typing 8 or 9 words and just have
totally.
it computed for you. Like that just blows my mind. And it worries me, but it's also extremely exciting. And I think content creators and influencers that are able to lean on new technology that's out there to come out with new ideas or interface
Mm,
it with what they're already doing, or find ways to diversify their streams and get out of their comfort zone and play more Web3 or other games. Like I feel that's kind of the direction that we're going in.
yep.
um, and I think you're starting to see a lot of influencers like Valkyrie on 100 Thieves. She
Mm,
killed the content creator game, and now she's doing stuff in music, and she's
yeah.
translating to other verticals in the entertainment industry. And I think that's a great way to kind of look at it. Like, she accomplished everything that she needed to. She became a co-owner of one of the coolest esport
So
orgs and
cool.
out there, and then now she's in music videos and doing K-pop stuff. I like that. To me is really fun to see, like, that trajectory with an
Yeah.
individual that started with content creation and now they're doing other things in the space. So I think that's something for content creators to keep in mind, is just continuing to think about like the road ahead and new games that are coming out without
Mm,
compromising like your brand or what your community might like. And I also think watch parties are a huge avenue
yeah.
for streamers at the moment. I've helped facilitate a few watch party deals with publishers that are looking for streamers to watch their game. And I
Huh.
mean, they're literally getting paid to watch a championship match, have fun with their community,
Yeah.
talk about, flunders and other things that are happening in the game. So I think there's a lot of different ways for streamers and influencers to monetize their brand. And when you start to kind of make a list and see what others are doing, there's a lot to do out there.
So interesting. What do you think is a big misconception or something that people get wrong about esports?
Oh man, I would say how hard it is to actually do it. I don't think a lot of obviously I'm really happy that there's like the VCT game changers, and I'm really happy to see that women are able to compete now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a girl dad now, and I love seeing, like, in case my daughter wants to follow my
Yeah.
footsteps, it's cool that there's publishers and groups that are empowering, women in the space and are giving them a platform to compete. Like, that's really exciting to me. I think that's going to be, just evolving as the next decade comes to fruition. But I think a lot of men in gaming and even myself, like, we have a hard time communicating our emotions and the work that we're actually doing
Mm,
and how hard it is to actually go pro. And I think there's a misconception on, if you actually, like, peel back the onion layers, like how much sacrifice it takes
yeah.
to get to become a pro player. And then it's like, what do you do with it? How do you take that experience and kind of translate it to something else? And that's a big passion point of mine, is giving back
Mm,
and helping out with these pro players and trying to find them internships or
right.
opportunities or other things outside of gaming. I was fortunate, again, going back to the beginning of the podcast, I
Mm,
was very fortunate to get my degree before I went pro. Not a
right.
lot of other players did that. And there's also a misconception around getting a bachelor's degree. Does that even make a difference with a job anymore? So,
Yeah.
we're just in this weird transition where it's about who you know and kind of the experience that you've built up too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what do you think? I don't know if you remember in this kind of detail, but what did a day in your life as a pro player look like? Like, what was happening in the different hours of the day when you say, all of the work happening behind the scenes? Can you kind of spell that out for me?
Yeah. My sleeping schedule was terrible. That's a start. So I'd wake
I
up.
believe that.
Yeah, I'd probably wake up 10, 11 a.m., make lunch, breakfast. We would start. I'd go downstairs. I'd play casual matches for probably 2 or 3 hours, and
Hmm.
then scrims would start at 4 to 5. And I mean, we
Mm,
would play from 3, 4, 5 until 8, 9, 10 p.m. at night.
yeah.
And then there's also this need where we call it eights, where you get eight individual. It's basically pickup scrims. Like, if you go to a basketball gym and you pick out your teams and you play, like, that's what we did in Call of Duty. And it's, again, another layer of kind of the political spectrum where you're
Mm,
networking with players, you're talking trash about your teammates and other teammates, and everyone's trying to work their way up the totem pole. So it
mm,
felt like, again, it felt like a full 12, 13-hour day to not only practice on my own, practice with my team,
yeah.
but then I had to play with other people in the community to let them know, like, hey, I exist. This is the way I approach the game. Uh, you know, there's a lot of politics when it comes to gaming, and the amount of say that players have when
Oh,
they're
interesting.
obtaining new teammates. And
Yeah.
I tried to make that a difference maker for myself when I was a general manager and a coach. I would really try to put my foot down and say, hey, we sign a contract, we're sticking with this team. I don't want to make changes. I try to lean on what the players wanted, but I
Yep.
try to actually come from it from a more traditional point of view where I believe in you guys and we're not making a quick fix just
Mm.
because you want to make one, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And what what advice would you give to individuals aspiring to become esports players or influencers?
I think, if I can think outside of anything on the organization side, family support's always important. It's hard to come
Mm.
by. I did not have I had like half of my family supported me and the other half not
Yeah.
supporting me until I started to make money. So, taking the time to kind of update your family on your passions and why you want to do this and getting their
Mm.
support can really help uplift you on a day-to-day basis with what you're trying to accomplish. Also, just try not to burn any bridges. It will all esports and influencer, like, our community is so big but so small at the same time. Once you start increasing the tiers of how powerful or the leverage that you have in your own community, everyone talks about things that are happening. So
Mm.
the more, options, the more friends that you have, the better. I can't express how many times an influencer comes across a brand and they say, "Hey, like, we love you, but we want 3 or 4 of your friends to come be a part of this
Right.
activation. Do you know anybody that would be a good fit?" And they're gonna pick the people that they think, 1, are gonna perform well, it's gonna
Yep.
help their stream, but they're also gonna wanna work with people that they
They like.
actually like. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's hard to not burn bridges. I mean, I've been in a spot where I have a massive tweet typed up about, the industry or a specific organization that I think's not they're not
Scorched
live
earth tweet.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
not living up to their expectations for making content or treating players the right way, and I have to delete it, and I just don't post it. Like, I type it out and I'm like, "You know
Mm.
what? I just need to not do it," because you never know an individual that's inside that's completely not associated with decision making or this and that, but it
Mm.
affects them and they see that. And again, it's you just always want to look out for your persona and your brand and not have any dead options out there.
What was like a pivotal moment or a project that significantly impacted your approach to influencer marketing?
I So I've done 2 watch party deals, with Legion and Lyric, who used to be on eUnited, and that really opened up my eyes again on the opportunities that exist from an
Mm.
influencer perspective, like, not just doing, like, an affiliated deal, not just talking about, um, a product on stream or having multiple call to actions through the Twitch chat and through panels and a social media post, but
Yeah.
actually integrating your brand and leveraging that to
Mm.
have your community that knows nothing about a game, but actually get excited about a new game that they're watching, I think is really fun. From a different approach, we helped bring Cash App to Space Station Gaming last
Cool.
year at TwitchCon, and
Yeah.
we had some of the best Street Fighter 6 players play, and depending on who won and who lost, they would, wager for Cash App and, money would be transacted and given to them depending on
That's
who won the
fun.
tournament. And that was really authentic. It was fun. Cash App's like main goal for that event was just making sure that the community had a great time. They wanted the players to have a great time. Everything
Mm.
else was kind of secondary, and them giving the production and the players and the host the ability to just create something fun again led to a really successful event and everyone
Yeah.
walked away feeling really good about it. So those are kind of the two, prime examples I think of. Um, and also for influencers too, it can be, I think there needs to be like more frequency during deals. Like, it's kind of
Mm.
risky just to do like one YouTube ad or
Yeah.
one social post. Like, you never know if it's going to get picked up by the algorithm or if that community is having a good or a bad day, or depending on the
Yeah.
timing, depending on the time that you post it. Like, there's so many different
Absolutely.
factors that go into what makes a good post or a good campaign successful. So if you are an influencer, always think about ways to have longevity to a post, even if that's
Mm,
compromising the budget and giving the brand a little bit of love, like, hey, we're going to do a post in November, but I also want to look at something before Christmas or look at,
mm.
just trying to create some depth to it is really important to ensure that you're building out like a comprehensive case study and also looking out for yourself because you want to ensure that you're delivering for the brand. If the brand knows that you're going above and beyond for them, they're
They'll hire
probably going
you
to come.
again.
Yes, even if you
Yeah,
don't perform, I've
that's
seen
right.
brands, yeah, even if you don't hit your KPIs and you don't reach the user signups that you were expected to reach. If you say, "Hey, like I want to give a little bit more because I want to see this be successful," I guarantee you brands will come back and really admire and appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I have one last question for you,
Sure.
which is what advice would you give to an agent or marketer hoping to succeed with influencer strategies?
We talked about a lot of good stuff today. I'm trying to think about it from their
From the
angle.
other point of view, yeah.
You know, agents, I guess I can kind of consider myself an agent since I'm in the middle of it. I think there's a lot of agencies out there that have way too many options, like way too
Mm,
many influencers. Like we're talking about hundreds of options, right?
yeah,
And when they're on a brand call, they're always going to prioritize those top 5 or 10 people because that's where the most money is and that's where they make most of their cut. And then again, if they can't fulfill that, then they start talking about the middle and lower tier streamers
yep,
that they have. So I really think it's just about being honest with brands and trying to figure out a way to help everybody win. I've talked with a lot of influencers that feel like they're not being treated fairly at the
oh well,
agencies
yeah,
they're at because they love their agencies, but they're just not getting attention because they have so many options. And I'm trying to think about it differently as an agent or someone that's kind of facilitating deals where if I do start an influencer division, I want it to be 3, 5, 10 people max. They're all
right?
complementary of one another. And I will only grow past 10 people if I have enough pipeline and deals coming in where I feel confident that I can spread the love and give these
Mm,
influencers the treatment that they deserve. So that's something for agents to kind of think about is how they're prioritizing influencers and their brand discussions and really ensuring that they're not just going after a commission, but they're
yeah,
figuring out a way to maybe layer out a deal where not only your number one guy succeeds, but it's a package deal that includes numerous individuals within
totally.
your within your network. And then for brands coming into esports and influencer marketing, I always think it's important to look at case studies, like see what other work they've executed, take a
Mm,
little bit of extra time to research these influencers and see how they engage with their fans. Their agent could be saying one thing, and then you go to their Twitter and you realize language or other things that they're using that just don't align with your brand. And
yeah,
I think taking the extra time to do that research is really important. And then even like asking questions, like if you are looking at a multi-year deal with an esports organization, you obviously, if they have like these premier athletes and players that are associated with that organization, you probably want those same people that are going to be there during the entire term. It is sports in a way, so you can't guarantee that a player is going to be there. They could be traded or they
right.
could be let go due to some type of reason, but I think asking those questions to a general manager or to the director of marketing saying like, "Hey, what's the team situation like right now? Like, how are the vibes?
Yeah,
What are the contract length? Like, when is this player's contract up? Because if they sign a 2-year term and their number one player that's pulling in the most signups and garnering the most impressions for them leaves in 4 or 5 months because his contract is up. I think those
right.
are the types of communication that orgs and brands need to be having just to make sure that they're aligned and focused before they enter a contractual, agreement.
That's a really great point. Thanks for detailing that.
Yeah.
I don't have any more questions. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that we cover I feel like we covered a lot of ground, but if there's
Yeah.
anything else you want to say, that was the time.
No, I really appreciate the time and the thought, and this. It's always fun to just chat about the industry, and
Yeah,
I'm hoping
absolutely.
the people who listen to this got valuable insight. Can share that. More than happy. Anyone can add me on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter. I'm very receptive with answering questions or trying to get back to where I can. Also,
What's your
just
handle? Where can people find you?
yeah, that's a great one. I should have added that. My Twitter is Potthoff, so Potthoff, and then on LinkedIn it's just Matthew Potthoff if people decide to invite or connect with me. And I guess I can shout out Pivot too, my current agency. We're doing a lot out there. We're doing travel with 9 NBA and 3 MLB teams. We do hospitality and racquetball and tennis and pickleball, which is really
Really? I didn't know
exciting.
that. That's
Yeah, I'm
cool.
I'm trying to take a lot of these really cool departments that Pivot has and bring them over into gaming to become like a
Yeah.
one-stop shop on helping with catering, flights, ground transportation, logistics, and
Awesome.
also sponsorship deals. So I'm really excited about where Pivot's heading and kind of the direction of our company, and was very excited that I was able to kind of get this opportunity to again take my skill set from eUnited and transition into this role that I have here. So just wanted to give them a quick shout out, and yeah, really appreciate the time and everything.
This was really fun. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And that's our show. Thanks for tuning into Influence. It was wonderful having Matt here with us. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media at PowderGG on Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube for more updates and behind the scenes content.